set the tone for ESG.
A very good morning, everyone. It was quite an impromptu invite. Dr. Elizabeth was to take up the stage, and here I am welcoming you all. It's a spiritual connect, as we say. And it is my utmost pleasure to have the privilege to welcome you to today's ESG conference. I'm really delighted that professionals, established professionals like you, have taken out time from your busy schedules to be with us today and focus on the aspect of sustainability so we can all move forward together in the same direction, channelizing our energies right where they should be. We all understand your organizations, whether you are employed in or somewhere in some company or whether you're an entrepreneur. We are very sure that your organization in some way or the other is taking initiatives towards our planet Earth. And that's what makes us really glad today again that you are here to help us, to move with us together, so we, using your ideas, your support, your strength, and your expertise, can make a difference in the world where we are. A very warm welcome again today, and you'll keep seeing me here. Plus, if you have any questions, any doubts, any queries, anything that you require to make yourself comfortable for today's program, please feel free to reach out to any of our volunteers or directly to me.
You set the tone so well, you're so confident, you're such a nice speaker. You didn't introduce yourself.
Very nice, sir. Thank you for that. As they say, it's an impromptu invite. And then again, to introduce oneself, at least to me, is not an easy task, so I'll make an attempt. 2 lines about myself. I'm a business strategist by profession. So I work with companies to formulate and implement their business strategies, where sustainability certainly forms one of the very strong pillars of how we work and where we work. I have recently moved back to India. So I was based out in Italy before US, and therefore my expertise, or rather knowledge, expertise is not the very right word to use, my limited knowledge of 10, 11 years of working in 4 continents, which is Asia, Africa, Europe, and North America, has gained me the privilege to again work with organizations and be a partner in their success. Apart from being a business strategist, I'm an author of 12 books. I'm also a keynote speaker at various conferences.
I didn't get your name, sorry.
I'll do that, sir, again. And when I'm not doing that, I'm into golfing and shooting. My name is Dr. Supriya Sharma. Supriya, as they say. Thank you so much for being kind and giving your time to listen to my introduction. I feel very humble and blessed at the same time. Thank you again and a very warm welcome. We look forward to making this a very great conference and a great day of learning for all of us. Thank you so much for being here.
With that lovely welcome, I think it's more challenging for me to follow you as a speaker. Welcome you all to the ESG conference. Our world faces a number of global challenges. Climate change, transitioning from a linear economy to a circular one, increasing inequality, balancing economic needs with societal needs, and many more. Environmental, social, and governance framework is a step towards addressing these challenges and building a sustainable future. Welcome to the Environmental, Social, and Governance Conference, The Way Forward, jointly organized by Delhi Management Association, All India Management Association, and Institute of Company Secretary.
Hello.
Supported by Cargill, Institute of Cost Accountants of India, New Delhi Institute of Management, Vijayas Foundation, TIE Delhi NCR, with the loyalty partnership of Winnipeg. To officially welcome the guests for the first session today, may I request Sir Deepak Jain to honor our chief guest with a token of welcome. May I request Dr. Arvind Vidwani sir to kindly step up on stage. May I also request the remaining speakers for the first session today? Dr. Yogesh Mishra, President of Delhi Management Association. C.S. Sunil Gambhir, Vice President, Corporate Law and Company Secretary, DCM Shriram Limited. C.S. Venkatramana, sir, Central Council Member, ICSI. To officially welcome our Chief Guest, may I request Deepak Jain, sir, to honor our Chief Guest with a token of welcome. May I request Amit Arya, sir, Secretary, Delhi Management Association, to honor Dr. Yogesh Mishra with a token of our welcome. May I also request you, sir, to honor C.S. Sunil Gambhir as well. May I request Ms. Anuradha ma'am, Vice President, Delhi Management Association, to honor C.S. Venkatramana, sir, with a token of our welcome. May I also request you to honor Deepak Jain, sir, as well.
It's a part of the family. Thank you. Thank you, madam.
India is at a decisive turning point, riding on Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's vision to make India a developed nation by 2047. When we will be celebrating 100 years of independence. It is our collective responsibility to make India a developed country by promoting probity, transparency, and impartiality. Representing the Delhi Management Association, I invite Dr. Yogesh Mishra, sir, for the presidential address. He has over 2 decades of consulting experience and is currently working as head consulting practice for Thomas Assessment. He will also be introducing us to the topic of the first session today, ESG for a developed India at 2047.
Thank you, Elizabeth ji. Good morning, everybody. So, she has said a lot of things, but I don't intend to do any of those because I know we are running late and I would like to listen to what Dr. Vaibhani ji has to say. So, a bit of warm welcome to all of you. Congratulations, Jansa, for getting it organized. Delhi Management Association is one of the oldest management associations. We were one of the first ones we formed way back in 1955 to disseminate knowledge. DMA, BMA, CMA, MMA. Otherwise, the names have changed. Fortunately, Delhi name remains the same. Bombay becomes Mumbai, Calcutta has become Kolkata, Madras has become Chennai. So we are the 4 ones who founded IMA. For the last 68 years, we have been spreading knowledge education across. Now, when we were discussing this topic, Deepak Jain ji, so this brought a lot of thoughts in my mind. I remember a long time back, and I'll just give a quick background of my first touch with ESG was that I was discussing about investing in stocks with my wife. And she was like, GreenX is a very important thing. I said, boss, the purpose of business, I was looking at more from a capitalist perspective, MBA, etc., is to make money. I said, business profit maximization, I looked at Adam Smith, I looked at everybody, and I said that the purpose of business is to make money. And then we had a discussion about importance, how businesses should give back to the society. And then I said that only if business makes profit can you give back to the society. So we were having a discussion like that, and then she actually told me that if you look at statistics, and I didn't believe, and then later on she published a paper where she said that, so there is an index called as GreenX. And that index, if you invest in that, that technically tends to give you a better return. And this was from a period of 2004 to 2012 than other non-index similar kind of blue chip companies. So not only is green good, we look at environment, we look at sustainability, we look at corporate governance, and we say why it is good. Even from a very, very simple investment perspective, it makes sense. So I say, okay, yeah, that's very good. And then we also look at all what is happening around us. We realize that we have seen the impact of climate change. I don't know how many of you, your holiday plans got spoiled because of the rains in the hills. We have seen what all is happening. The way temperatures have risen some places, the rain cycles. So normally the 2 months, this time we had double Savan, na? There were 2 months of Savan. But if you realize that the second month of Savan, there were hardly any rains, which is very different. And I was talking to people, they said that the crop sowing pattern has gone for a spin. So environment has started impacting all of us. Then we look at all around the society, we see a whole lot of inequality. Sitting in Delhi, probably we are sitting in an island cocoon and we don't see inequality, but the moment you step outside Delhi, you see that probably not everybody has access to jobs. We look at corporate governance, we think there is equality, but there is still an invisible glass ceiling. So there are a whole lot of these questions that I have. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to leave the stage now because I would want all of you to also, with me, go through what Dr. Virmani has to say. And I would like to thank all of you for again coming over here. And I wish this conference all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yogesh sir. May I request C.S. Samit Gambhir, Vice President, Corporate Law, and of Company Secretary of Eastern Sri Lanka, to share your thoughts, sir.
Thank you very much. 5 minutes मैं भी लूँगा because we are all eagerly waiting to hear Dr. Virmani. So Dr. Virmani, Chief Guest, Chief Venkataraman ji, Central Council Member, Yogesh ji, DMA President, and our my dear friend Deepak Jain ji, who is the chair of this conference and done a wonderful job. You know, I've been working with him in the ESG committee, and I think the kind of vision he has, the kind of things he is actually doing in the ESG committee is remarkable. So far so that, you know, we have, I was very impressed by the way we are trying to do in the ESG committee, you know. Because the thing is that when you have to educate the people in ESG, particularly sustainability, is the right age is, you know, when it started from the student age. And that's what we have started doing it now. Going to the colleges, participating with the colleges, schools, etc., giving them about the, you know, gyan about the sustainability, knowledge about the sustainability. And this is all something, when you start at that stage, that is something which gives you a real impact, frankly. हम लोग हमेशा एक बात करते हैं कि ESG is not something which you can do check the box and all. ESG is something wherein it has to come within, you know, it has to be in your DNA, it has to be in your character, it has to be something which is to be seen in your day-to-day life. और हम और आप क्या करते हैं? Whenever we go to the market, you know, we have to just make it as a practice. Whenever we go to the market, we have to make sure that we are not doing anything in the plastic bottle, we are not carrying any plastic bags. So our day-to-day habits, day-to-day lives actually inculcate the entire world, and then, you know, thereafter it becomes a habit or a culture of the organization or a country or world. So therefore, we have actually completed a lot of good journey since UN started this concept of ESG, that, you know, the company should be evaluated not only on the basis of financial but the non-financial as well, and that's become a very important aspect, as Dr. Yogesh also said, that, you know, the stocks have really started looking good. And till then now, we have actually completed a good journey, but still we are in a very nascent stage in India from talking about an ESG. So therefore, a lot has to be done in this area. This is something, and therefore, you know, the responsibility on the corporates. One side we are working with the students, the responsibility on the corporates actually has become very big responsibility. They share a lot of responsibility on their shoulders, because they are the wealth of the country, they are the wealth in the organizations, and that's why they can do this duty very well. After all, it is something which they have to do for the society, they have to do for the world. And when it comes to, because, you know, as company secretary of compliance officer, again when it comes to the organization part of view, I really see that the tone has to be set at the top. If you think your board of directors are really good, your chairman, your directors are really good, really thinking about ESG, the culture will definitely inculcate in the organization. And it's linked to each other, you know, your organization at the top telling you about the employees, your employees talking to your team members or your employees talking to the channel partners, and then it goes to your channel partners, and finally when your channel partner talking to their employees, your suppliers, your vendors, so everything is interconnected. And that's what the purpose of ESG, that, you know, we have to take all the people along. It's not that, you know, organization is doing good, but your supplier, your vendor are not actually doing good, or they are not transparent, their policies are not good. You have to understand their policies also. So I think overall, I think it's a very, very good concept. It's a philosophy which is going to stay here. I can tell you, this is going to change the lives of the people. But in any case, organizations have to really inbuild in the, or cultivate in the DNA or the culture of the organization. That's very important. Transparency of the policies, well-being of employees, well-being of customers. So everything is very, very important, which is interconnected in terms of when we're talking about the social, inclusivity, DIN. And at the same time, when we talk in our organization, like for example, I'll give you an example of my organization. When we were talking about the ESG, it is driven by a whole-time director completely. And I was pleasantly surprised to see that, you know, we were not aware of the things like, you know, when we see the data, we are 12-time water positive, 75% of our raw material is from recycled raw materials, etc., etc. When we get all this data, we really feel proud about the organization. That's all you will do when you see really the data. And that's the reason we're talking about the data in the public domain. Now we're talking about the reportability of ESG in the form of BRSR in listed entities. Otherwise, people are also giving a lot of reports in the public domain. So that's where you actually come to know and know about the organization, that what actually they are doing. There's a lot of responsibility on the organization. In fact, when in terms of talking to the ESG related things, the one concept which is actually, you know, is becoming very fast is greenwashing. People are really worried about that, you know, why people are doing a lot of data which may or may not be misleading in the public domain. Does it become a race in the organization to, you know, get a score of ESG because there is no regulated agency as of now? But I think, you know, the SEBI is doing a good work to making norms for the listed entity at least, and I'm sure the ministry or the other ministry will come up with the norms for the others also. So yeah, that's true. You know, ultimately one has to really understand that giving misleading data to the public is really, really wrong, and therefore, in the US, I've heard there's a task force also which is talking about it, that, you know, you have to really see and scrutinize that the data is not misleading. So since a lot of company secretaries are there, as a company secretary, I think, you know, compliance officer, it's your duty also to see that the reporting is actually ethical and proper. So whenever we're talking about the reporting of data in public domain, please make sure that it is actually properly scrutinized and there is no greenwashing in that. So I'll not take much of the time because I know we are here to hear our chief guests and other speakers here. So with this, I'll end my talk here, and thank you very much for attending this wonderful conference. And congratulations to the star of the conference, Deepak Jangal.
Thank you so much, sir. Now may I request C.S. Venkatramana, sir, to share his thoughts on the theme of the conference.
Very good morning, everybody. Chief guest Arvind Varmani ji and C.S. Deepak Jain ji, Dr. Yogesh Mishra ji, and Mr. Samir Gapit ji, and Council Member of CMA Institute, Mr. Navneet Kumar ji. Dear friends, it is really a great occasion where we are discussing about ESG today. And the management institutions like HMA, DMA and AMA, and professional bodies like our institute and CMA Institute. So we are here to inculcate that whatever sir said, the DNA, into the management of the companies, that they should look into this ESG as a prime important aspect. And as a Niti Aayog initiatives, really they are wonderful initiatives, sir, like National Data Analyst Platform, Aspirational District Platform, and Women Entrepreneurial Platform, which Niti Aayog has created. And many of the corporates are today, like Shunya, the initiative taken for protecting the environment by EV vehicles, electronic vehicles, subsidies and all. These are the initiatives of ESG. So what we are looking as bodies and the institutions to improvise the ESG. The reason being, friends, I would like to take to the ancient Upanishad which says, Prakriti Sachidananda Rupan. That is, nature is the embodiment of the truth and consciousness and bliss. That is why today, and it also says that Vasundhara Utpatti Sthiti Laya Hetu. That is, nature is the reason behind the creation, preservation and the destruction. So that is how we have seen today the disasters happened at Kedarnath and all, why when the nature was tampered, and we have seen the result of it now. And the another Upanishad says, Sarva Bhavantu Sukhintu. That is, everyone should be happy. That is what we learned from our Upanishads and our culture. That is what we have. See, the regulatory may make any conditions, regulations, disclosures and all. But end of the day, in Indian ancestry, we have in our blood that we have to protect the nature and we have to protect the environment, and same way we are protecting the governance. So these kind of conferences definitely I hope will give a lot of insights on this subject. And we as a professionals will take up this to the best of our nation, and India will be making the India as a great nation. So with this brief note, friends, I'll conclude. And I am happy that I am member of the ICSA, council member of the ICSA, and also I am lifetime member of the HME as part of the AME institution. Thank you all.
So much, Venkatramana sir, for taking us back to our roots. Now may I request Deepak Jain sir, Conference Chair and Chairman of TMA and ESG Committee, and share his thoughts on the group.
Thank you. So friends, ESG is an awareness, is an awareness to live our professional and personal life, taking care of the environment, society, and good governance. The concept is applicable not only in our professional and commercial life, but also in our personal life. By living in our personal life and enjoying the world, we need to take care of environment, society, and good governance. And at present, the awareness level is only to the extent of 20 to 30%. And this conference is being convened, and we will be doing it after a period of 6 months or so, to increase this awareness level. All other organizations and the government, they are doing this, but we thought that let us contribute our efforts also. So friends, I believe that it is all consciousness. That if we are, अगर जब हम जागरूक हैं, if we are awake, then we normally take care of good governance and the concepts like ESG. So this all depends on our consciousness level. हम कितने जागरूक हैं. For example, some 2,500 years ago, when Siddhartha Gautam became Buddha, someone asked him, "Are you God?" He said, "No, I am not God. I am just awakened. I just मेरी consciousness, मेरी चेतना जाग गई है. मेरे को अब समझ में आ गया है life क्या है." So yesterday, all the human beings, the nature जैसी थी वैसी ही आज भी है, तो मेरे देखने का नजरिया चेंज हो गया है. So he was able to awaken his inner potential, his consciousness, his higher self, the God inside us. So वही little bit हम लोगों को करना है कि हम लोगों को अपने आप को अवेयर करना है that we need to spread good governance to reach to a developed India, a developed nation, a developed world. And we need to take care of the society. We need to take care of the environment. Recently, we have a very huge, successful G20 event. And if you remember, the G20 event, it revolved around ESG. If you see the Delhi Declaration, the G20, it has taken care of the much debate they deliberated on environment, climate change. The developed countries have given themselves a target to become net zero by 2050. I think India has given a target of, I believe, 2070. So this is one concept. Then society. For society, we have done one of the biggest achievement India has done for society. Any guess? Inclusion, inclusive growth. सोशल इंक्लूजन में जो गवर्नमेंट प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरेंद्र मोदी बात करते हैं, so he has made his efforts by including African Union in the G20. So it is one of the biggest achievement of India by including the African Union, the poorest countries. That is an example of including the society. We call it inclusive growth. And then on governance, the government, the India, they have made all the efforts that they put their maximum emphasis on all the world organizations, multilateral organizations. They need to introduce reforms and good governance in them to become the organizations with the new scenario, in the new age. World Bank, United Nations, IMF, Asian Development Bank, they all need to revamp themselves, and the process is on. So the government, the G20 has taken care of ESG. So it is such an important topic now, ESG, that India and the world over, wherever any platform there is any discussion, ESG is invariably one of the constituent. So friends, DMA की ये कोशिश है कि हम लोग इसको concepts को आगे ले जाएं. And again, I would say this all depends on our consciousness. And if we are unconscious, there are leaders in the world who are unconscious, I believe, when they wage a war against another country, and all the world indirectly or directly supporting that war, and it is hurting our environment. We are losing lives. I believe more than 1 lakh lives we have lost in the world over. And around $300 billion we have wasted in the war. I mean, this kind of money could have wiped out the poverty in the majority part of the world. So friends, the new management of DMA, which took over in January 23, they decided and constituted this ESG committee. And I appreciate the management committee of DMA, they constituted this committee. And I appreciate Dr. Yogesh Mishra, the president, who reposed confidence in me and requested me, asked me to take it ahead. So, my dear friends, and in this committee we constituted in the month of April, Samit Gambhir, CS Sanjay Gupta, and Dipan Mataji, she is not here. Praveen Kanji, he is not here. Supriya Sharma is here, and Mr. Raj Chawla is here, Central Council member and ESG committee member and DMA मैनेजमेंट कमेटी मेंबर आल्सो. सो हम लोगों की कोशिश रहेगी कि हम कुछ ना कुछ ESG में करते रहें एंड कुछ ना कुछ सपोर्ट गवर्नमेंट से भी लेते रहें. डॉक्टर विमानी हमारे साथ हैं. वी विल बी इन टच विद हिम फॉर फ्यूचर गाइडेंस एंड that is all which I wanted to say. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deepak Jain sir. It's an honor and privilege to introduce the chief guest of today's conference, Dr. Arvind Virwani sir. He's member of Niti Aayog, Government of India. He has served as chairman of the Foundation for Economic Growth and Welfare. He has also been associated with the International Monetary Fund, Ministry of Finance, Planning Commission, Indian Council for Research on International and Economic Relations. Most importantly, he believes in the theme that we all are going to be discussing today. I invite you, sir, to enlighten the audience with your knowledge and your thoughts on ESG for a developed India at 2047.
So, actually, it's a little more interesting and different from what was just mentioned. When I actually saw ESG, I said, no, I don't know enough to talk about this topic. But then I saw Delhi Management Association, and having been born in Delhi and lived most of my life here, I thought it's time for me to get back into Delhi. I also incidentally happen to, as a member, members have certain states assigned. I have actually been assigned Delhi. So that is the reason, but I'm going to talk about overall perspective and not really about ESG. So I'm sorry if you're expecting ESG, but I was intrigued. Because I've been here for 45 minutes and I have to rush back. I forgot to say hello to Mr. Jain. Thank you for inviting me. So what intrigued me, very interesting point about the Upanishads. It's interesting, I read philosophy, our second vice president was a philosopher. And I read his book, it's been 50 years ago now. But recently, I have been listening to podcasts, very interesting. Some of you may want to try it, and learning a lot about India's history and philosophy. So in your spare time, you can find some good podcasts. They're very useful, if you're walking or something. And really, your point was resonating. This is what I've learned, is the conception that the old philosophers 3,005 years ago or something had about the world is so amazingly consistent with modern science that it's really worth reading about it or even listening. Reading is difficult, you read a lot of stuff, all of you are busy people, but try listening to it. And it really will give you a lot of message on which Mr. Jain also and all of you have pointed out. So that's all I'm going to say on the ESG. So my purpose here is to kind of give you an overview of what's been happening in India and India with respect to the world. And I do this because I think it's important for every profession. I mean, I have talked to, I am Bangalore last month and so on. And I think most of us get into the details of our jobs and we are busy with that most of the time. But I think for professionals like you and others, it's important to have an overall perspective. So that's what I'm going to try and give you. So this is about India at 100, which would be roughly around 2050. Of course, 100 years of India is 1947. And kind of the intermediate state at 2035. I'll go over it quickly because we are kind of delayed and we have short time. So in my talk, I'm going to talk about external threats and opportunities for India, domestic weaknesses. You hear a lot of criticism, but I'm going to put all that into perspective. And if we have time, maybe we can have a few questions. Domestic weakness, domestic strength, among which is our development approach, which was, I think, referred to by Mr. Jain. Key new drivers of growth in the Indian economy and what kind of outcomes we expect relative to the world. Where are we likely to be in 2035, 2050? So basically, our objective is to become a high-income country by around the middle of the 21st century. Of course, PM and others give particular dates, but as an economist, I have to be much more cautious. I'm a macroeconomist. I think of a lot of issues, and there's a lot of uncertainty in everything. But when you're thinking about something, you have to have some kind of a scenario or a time frame. So, a high-income country by mid-21st century, we are currently what is classified by the World Bank as LMIC, lower middle-income country. In about 10 years from now, we would become an upper middle income country, and by the middle of the century, a higher income country. So for that, we have to sustain fast, inclusive growth. Really inclusive was mentioned. So where are we today? In terms of poverty, the absolute level of poverty, which is what we have generally talked about for the last 75 years, which is in World Bank terms, it's called $1.9 a day, but we have our own definition, which is very similar to that. But both numbers we've calculated, and the poverty rate is now less than 2%. That is negligible. You can say poverty in that sense has been eliminated. Multidimensional poverty, again, we are close, we will eliminate that, and so once that absolute level of poverty is gone, you have to think of a different level, what one might call middle income poverty, which is defined at $3.2 a day. And there we are around 18% right now. So we would aim to eliminate that in the next 15 years and we reach this upper middle income level. And then finally I'll say, of course, equality of opportunity for women is kind of a critical part in this. So that you could see that as part of your ESG goal, because without that we are not going to achieve these goals. So it's an essential element of that. And finally, if I will say a little bit about India's economic power and where we rank and how we are doing with respect to China, or how we will do in future. So what are the opportunities? The basic underlying frame is demography. So how global demography and Indian demography is progressing and will happen over the next is going to key to how what India does and India's role in the world. So there is a demographic decline in the developed countries, EU, Japan, with a declining share of working population. On the other hand, India's share of working population is rising, and this will change what I call the dynamic comparative advantage of India with respect to the developed countries. So a lot of our approach is going to be shaped by this demographic dynamics. And basically, in very simple terms, what this dynamic advantage means is that we will go from being competitive in unskilled, labor-intensive goods and services to semi-skilled, labor-intensive to skilled, labor-intensive. Now you might say, we have all this IT sector, and it's doing great. So that's skilled. What are you talking about? Why skilled, unskilled, labor-intensive? Because that covers 1 million people. We have 1.4 billion people. So when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about the whole country. 1.4 billion people on average. We are still in the unskilled, labor-intensive stage, but we have to move quickly in this next 30 years through these stages, so that overall it will go from unskilled, labor-intensive to semi-skilled to skilled. An essential element of this and a great opportunity that has arisen is supply chain diversification. You all heard of China, China Plus One, etc. All those things, that's an opportunity to promote our labor-intensive manufacturing and link it to what I said earlier. We do not have that. And finally, the unbundling of globalization of services. This I'll kind of keep it brief because of the limit of time, but I have several slides which I've removed from this, which is a very important thing occurring, and which is why in talking to Mr. Mishra, I said this organization should try and involve service sector in your activities, and I'm sure you will do that. What are the threats? There are threats. The way I look at threats is that we are trying to convert threats into opportunities. So oil and gas imports is always a threat. Why is that? Because it's a universal input. It, in economic terms, has low demand elasticity. So whenever prices rise, it acts like a tax on India with respect to the rest of the world. So basically, you think of it as a tax on Indians as a whole, as India, which is going to the oil-producing companies. You'll hear a lot of talk about how it affects fiscal deficit, current account deficit, inflation. I'm talking about something different. I'm saying it affects fundamentally our income. Okay? It takes money away from here. Okay, this is what? It's a huge threat. I've analyzed the data for the last 50 years, and every time there's an oil shock, we suffer as a country. Our growth tends to slow. So how to convert it into opportunity? We aim to become a leader in solar power. You've heard of the International Solar Alliance? This is the big change that this Prime Minister has done. He's realized that this is a big threat. Let's make it into an opportunity. I can tell you, I've been in government for 25 years. I was in government. I've worked for 5 prime ministers and 5 finance ministers. We used to hesitate that this is a new technology, this is costly, should we switch? But one of the big characteristics of this prime minister is he grabs the opportunity. It's sometimes risky. Don't think it's all easy. It's huge. I mean, I have been involved in these decisions. It's very tough sometimes, for an economist to say, this is a great opportunity, what about the risk? If you sink crores of rupees and nothing is produced, it's very risky. I'm just trying to give you a sense of, so anyway, okay, so aggression and grey war. You all know about the stuff which is happening on the northern border for the last 2 years. So again, this threat is being converted into an opportunity by this initiative of Atmanirbhar defense production. And this also involves what we call dual-use technology like semiconductors. You read a lot about semiconductors, the telecom, etc. And finally, the climate change, which again is a threat, is to leapfrog it by going to the green economy. Again, this stuff connects with your topics, but I look at it from a broader macro perspective, as I call it. What are the weaknesses? The biggest weakness is, of course, the level of education and job skills, the female labor force participation, and the structural employment trap, which is that 2/3 of the population lives in rural areas, and 45% of income is still from agriculture and allied. 45% of people are dependent on agriculture and allied. This is very unprecedented. There is few countries that I have come across in history who have such a large dependence on this thing. So this structural shift is part of this overall thinking. That's the perspective which I'm trying to give you. But what does it mean? And the rural non-agricultural jobs, you have to improve basic education. So why is weakness an opportunity, right? So if your level of female participation is 25 and you go to 50, you get a huge boom in labor. So it's an opportunity. If you can make this conversion, it's a huge opportunity to grow. If you are already at 50% participation, there's no, the scope for further improvement becomes much limited, right? So a weakness has to be converted in an opportunity. It is an opportunity, actually. We have to see it like that. The same with education and skill. The productivity of the labor force can be hugely improved by improving the quality of the education and skills. So, converting weakness into opportunities. Now the strength. This is where I'm going to focus a little bit on the positive. So, what are the strengths? And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the policy, because that is one of the strengths, and to give you a broader picture, as I said, you're not economists, but I think everybody should have a picture of what is going on, what is the approach, etc. There are three elements of the approach which is very sound, so that's a strength. And look at that as a strength, because we have now a policy approach which is basically sound. Unlike many other countries which are scrambling, you will see all these changes in the US and British. We've thought of all those things, and they are in our approach. The kind of things they are trying to scramble and do now. So what is this? There are three elements. One is what I call the Indic market economy, which is a competitive economy with fewer monopoly segments, complete and efficient markets, and low information barriers and asymmetries. These are things which, especially the second and third point, are things which the Brits, Europeans, Americans are now thinking of. We have always thought about them, and they are an essential part of our policy. The role of government and private sector. This is somewhat evolved in our case. We started with having a much larger government role, and we've gradually come to a much better balance by stressing the private. So at this point in time, the clarity has come. Government must focus on and is focusing on the public good provision and regulation of externalities. Technical terms you can ignore, just focus on whatever words you understand. And the market environment, making it pro-competition, pro-investment. That is what will drive that sustained growth which I talked about. Welfare transfers, very focused, something we call Antodaya, and this is the inclusive part, empowerment and welfare transfers. Empowerment is very, very important. This is again crystallized over time. We don't need the socialism of the communist variety, but we do need empowerment. Because our country is so diverse, we have to empower every group, and that's what we are trying to do. And of course, the private sector must have this environment which I mentioned earlier to compete, innovate, and invest. So that is the approach which we have, and which has, as I said, crystallized. So what has been done in this direction in the last 10 years or so? Policy reform. Every element of policy, whether it's factor markets, labor, the law on competition, the IBC, MPC, GST, public sector, products and services, every area which had not been reformed is being individually identified. For example, drone policy. or liberalization of the space policy. Suddenly over the last 3 years, you've got tens of private sector, small private sector companies coming in. This is all being systematically thought of. Where are the constraints? Where do we need the private sector to come in? Institutional reform. I mentioned IBC, which concerns many of you. Abolition of outdated laws. Bureaucratic reforms. You've all heard of ease of doing business, etc. Use of technology to skirt barriers. The whole digital approach to for example, income tax, which again you may be familiar with. And then, of course, social reform and equality of opportunity. So public goods provision, public health, insurance provision. So everything trying to make sure that the private sector has a big role. For example, subsidies on insurance. Okay, it's subsidized insurance, but the private sector also supplies the service. The poor get subsidized insurance, not just services, not just government provision. So this is a new approach which we have that use the private sector in everything in which they can compete and do work effectively. But the government must create that environment for inclusive growth. Okay, so what is the outcome? Again, I'm giving you this because you hear a lot of stuff in the newspaper which is just plain wrong. Okay? So just the graph over there, the blue and red graphs over there, this data relates to employment and wages. So I'll just point out two things. One is that the employment, as we measure it, I won't tell you the technical details because probably that's not of interest. It has been growing in the last, so we have a consistent data set called PLFS for last 5 years, from 2017 and others. So, the problem is when you match different data sets, there's always a problem of people can say, you're doing this wrong. So what I'm trying to do here is take a consistent set, don't have to link it to anything. So what does it show? It shows that over these last 5 years, employment as understood in the world has been growing by 2.3% per annum, which is the second line over there on the right, on average. Then on real wages, which is the next table, which says daily wages, the real wage of casual workers has gone up by about roughly 5% per annum over these years. So real wages of the lowest segment, the casual laborers, the unskilled, remember the unskilled part which I mentioned earlier, has been going up by 5% per annum in real terms, i.e. adjusted for inflation. We do have an issue, the salaried workers' wage in this period actually, remember salaried is not just the corporate employees and employees of large companies, it can also include a household worker who is on regular employment and gets a salary. Okay? So it's all salaried workers. That has remained more or less stable over the 5 years. It's not increasing. Now, there are many factors we can go into analysis of this. And the weakness, I want to mention this, is actually in the self-employed sector, okay, where there is a decline in the real wage. And this is one of the reasons. And again, an example of the prompt action, the Vishwakarma scheme, you must have heard of it, it was announced a few days ago. That was precisely directed at this segment. And what is it? We know that the quality of self-employed output is very low. Okay? The only way to upgrade it is to upgrade the skills. And this is a general observation. You cannot raise the income, whether it's farmers or anybody else, without raising the quality of the output. So it's all about skills. In this long-term sense, you can always have a laundry list of credit, wo to chalta rehta hai. But without upgrading the skills, you will not get sustained inclusive growth. Okay, second element of the sound approach, I should speed up a bit, is Antyodaya empowerment, which I mentioned a little bit. So it includes provision of basic needs to every citizen. I'll give you some data. Empower every section of society. This is the important part which I said, which is now clearer and new. I'm not saying it's never happened before. There have been segments of it, but it's been a bit random. Now it's very clear that is the only sustainable thing. You can help people. There is this old expression which you may have heard of, that give a a fisherman, or give a man a fish and he will eat for one day and give him a fishing rod, etc. You all heard of that, right? So that is empowerment. You have to give them fishing rod, but it's not fishing rod, it's the skills. Okay? The skills are the key, the job skills. It's no good if everybody has a degree. You know, you hand them a degree, they can't do anything. I have examples, I have many examples of all these things, but I don't have the time, so I won't go into it. So empower every section of society. And of course, social or NGOs, etc., have their own role in all this. So, very briefly, this recently released, it's a multi-dimensional poverty report, but this gives a whole bunch of indicators, right? Health, education, and standard of living, like electricity, etc. And all these, are based on a survey which is done by a non-government organization called NFHS, National Family Health Survey. It's not a government data. So you keep hearing people saying, nothing is happening, etc. It's all being confirmed. It's all confirmed data. So in every indicator, there is an improvement. Negative means that deprivation has gone down. It is measured in form of deprivation. Okay? So in every indicator, deprivation has gone down. And the interesting part, that inclusion part, is that has gone down the most in the poorest states. In UP, Bihar, Odisha is not so poor now, but all the states you normally think of as the poorest, Bengal, etc. Finally, the third part of the approach is pragmatic macro management. So whether it's fiscal, monetary, credit, strategy, again, there are all kinds of examples. I kind of skip those. So what are the key new drivers of growth? I want to say a little bit of this, and the next two slides are kind of important. So supply chain diversification and de-risking. You heard the US president wants to use the word de-risking. I have been talking about partial economic decoupling for like 5 years now, but okay, whatever you call it. But remote access to jobs is one implication of this which is happening. This work from anywhere, which is very important for India. Globalization of social and government services. This is again a new impulse. There are technical reasons which technical people will be interested. I won't go into it. But a very important new driver. The digital and hybrid economy, public operating system with free and fair competition. This is again a conscious decision that you need to. This is a new field. It has new types of monopolies. You've heard of the 5 big companies in the USA, Google, etc. They are like new version of monopolies. People don't understand this. We do. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that small people in India at least can compete with these big, huge giants. Okay. So this digital economy, public systems, and the green economy, of course. The element which is different from others is its broader, diversified portfolio approach. It's not that we bet on one thing. What we are betting on, and this is the way to reduce the risk. You remember I mentioned that you can bet big on some technology, but it could go bust. So our approach is to diversify, to do a lot of things like solar, mass transit, the biggest expansion in metro systems ever, probably in any country in the world now. This happened in India in the last 10 years. The number of metros being built. So that's all part of the efficiency of energy use. Redesign of housing, appliances, the life thing, the lifestyles have to change, the millet campaign. So there's a whole bunch of things, a diversified approach. Digital, this is kind of important because India is pioneering a third way of innovation and inclusion in digital. To provide universal access, eliminate digital divides. Now, what is so important about it? The importance is the scalability. The problem is that India's population is twice that of the US and EU put together. So many of you must have visited the US and Europe. You wonder at the quality of their education, etc. You come here, and you read the surveys. People can't even read. Okay. So how do we improve the quality? And I did a review of the whole system in 2006 and came to the conclusion that the only way to upgrade that quality is using digital and hybrid systems. So the scalability problem. if you have to provide the same number and quality of teachers all over the rural areas, it will take you 50 years, maybe 100 years. Okay? But if you use a digital system, you can have one teacher sitting in the capital of the state or the district, and you can provide education to everybody. So you have to think of new ways, the scalability. So digital and hybrid systems. I can't help but talk about one portal which illustrates what is happening. This is something I was totally unaware of till I joined the government. It's an incredible program. You know, kids have, I'll take 2 minutes. You have these prescribed textbooks for every school, every class in school. This program has put a digital signature on every chapter. Okay, it's a what do you call it, barcode. But this is not an ordinary barcode. In this barcode, if you have a cell phone, you look at it, it will take you to a whole world out there. It takes you to lessons, it takes you to a thing. It's a hybrid system. It starts with the book. Okay? But if you use the cell phone, and you know what was happening, it's an amazing story. I can't help, I have many stories, but I don't have the time to tell you. But this one really flummoxed me, I tell you. You know what was happening? Little kids, girls, they were, before the lesson of the day, they would go and look at that stuff and start asking the teacher questions. It became so embarrassing for the teachers that they started using it. Just imagine, which is good, not a bad thing. I think that's an excellent thing. Okay? That's the kind of thing which is happening. So this digital element is another thing which you should take note of in all your work. It's going to be very, very important for everything. Okay, now what else? Get the information to the right people at the right time. Again, there's a story behind it, but I won't tell you. Information is a very funny thing. You know, we talk about goods, everybody can see what is the price of pencil and this. Information, if you don't know about the information, you can't find it because it's not in your mind, right? If I'm trying to write a report on Viksit Bharat, I know that Viksit Bharat. I can then go to Google, right, and look for Viksit Bharat. But if I've never even heard of the term, what happens, right? So you have, it's the role of the government as we see it. Okay? This is our point I was making, that you have to get the information. Suppose there is a poor tea worker in Assam. She has no idea about all kinds of things. And I can give you stories of it, I'm not just talking as a general. So the issue is we have to get it there. We have to get it to the right people. So for low income people, etc. And then there are issues of medium skills. You remember I mentioned semi-skill. The medium skill is very important. In things like hotel construction, etc., there's a huge shortage of job skills people. Everybody thinks, what's the problem? Well, there's a huge problem. We are not training enough people. So you can't, we keep talking about, oh, there are not enough jobs. But there's no job without the skill. If I just have a paper BA degree, and I can't do anything which needs to be done, it's useless. Okay, so leapfrog services, etc. Fine. So that gives you an overview. Now I'm just going to give you some optimistic views about the projection. These are projections and there are certain assumptions behind it, but I have made conservative assumptions and just quickly going to read it out to you. So as a result of all this stuff which I have told you about, where will we be relative to the world over time? So these are the graphs which are the projections, and I'll just read out a few results to you which are on the right side. And they all come from this. So India's per capita GDP. The per capita GDP is what measures the welfare of the people. Okay? And we are right now at 39% of world average, and we'll go to 103% by 2050. Okay? We are only 40% right now, but we will reach the world average. 15% of EU in 2019, we'll go to 44%. That's the red line. The first point was blue line, and so on. Okay. What about economic power? You hear a lot of words. Power of India is increasing. etc., we are 5th rank now, we'll be 3rd rank. So what is going to happen? So this projection shows you on the left the map. So it's what I measure as, there's an index I have which I call VIP, economic, VIPE. The US, it's all relative. So US is 1. Everything is measured with respect to 1, which is the top line of the 1 over there. And India is only about 0.15 and will go to 0.75, the red line. Okay? So relative to USA, you can say roughly, India will go from being just 15% to about 75% over this period. China is the blue line, which will itself be going from 0.63 to 0.92. Okay, and I'll show you India relative to in the final one. And the interesting point here is that China is the blue line, and see that flattening out. This is what is happening. This is because of their choices, their fight with everybody, their aggression, the decoupling, supply chain diversification is going to have this effect. They could have become much more powerful than USA, but it's not going to happen now because everybody has woken up. Okay, final graph. So this is India relative to China. There are the blue line is what you can focus on is that India's economic power will increase from 24% in 2020 to 81%. So we will still be behind, but that's a huge catch-up. This is my estimation. Others have various types of estimations. As I said, my estimate is very conservative. I've been doing it since 2004. I have 5 papers at various times, and by and large, I have been right. That doesn't mean I'll be right in future, but I have to be conservative. And finally, India's GDP is projected to increase from about 39% of, the first one is the power as measured by my index, and the red line, or India's GDP will go from about 39% to 94%. So we will roughly catch up with China by around 2050. Okay, final. Just a summary. So India will be a high-income country by mid-century. Average quality of life, what that means is roughly the EU of 1995. Now some people get depressed at that. I don't think there's anything to be depressed about. You are way behind. Let's not have delusions. Okay? You're way behind the US and EU. So if we catch up, we're getting close, that's good. Sustained fast growth is kind of absolutely critical to all this. Equality of opportunity for all citizens, and to summarize, using the underutilized human resources. That is what is going to give us a fast, sustained growth. Digital economy, I've said a lot about it. Use it to provide high quality social services, upgrade human resources. And the punchline, the paradox of power, we call it, right? So our power rank will be 3, but our income rank will still be around 1990. Now people think that this is a contradiction. It's not a contradiction, it's a paradox. 2 reasons. One is among that 90, there will be lots of small things, like the Bahamas. Bahamas has maybe, I don't know exactly how much, less than 1 million people. They'll still be rich, they're already rich. Okay? But the second one is that population. Population matters now, again, in the world. It used to matter 1,000 years ago. And it matters again. So the simple calculation is India's and China's population is 4 times USA. So we just have to have the 1/4 per capita GDP of China to equal that. Population will matter if you do all the things I've just talked about. Upskilling, right? Female labor force, etc., etc. Okay? So you don't have, so that will be a contradiction which is there for China also, by the way. Okay? So these 2 countries are different. They are not the same as everything else. So there's no contradiction. It's a paradox. Okay, thank you.